It was supposed to be the first good day of my life. I had woken up before sunrise, my heart pounding like a child before her first day of school. My new office outfit wasn't expensive, a cream blouse, black trousers, and old shoes polished until they shone. But to me, it felt like armor. My first real job, my first paycheck, my first chance to prove I wasn't the useless, wasted effort my father always said I was. I left the house quietly. If he heard me, he'd ruin it before it began. He always did. "Working won't change what you are," he'd told me once. "You'll always end up back here begging." Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video. So I didn't tell him I'd applied, didn't tell him I'd interviewed, didn't tell him I'd been hired. I wanted him to find out only after I had proof that I wasn't worthless. The bus ride felt like freedom. I kept replaying my mother's face when I'd told her I had orientation today. She hadn't smiled. She'd just said, "Don't get your hopes up. You know how your father gets when you disobey." I knew. That's why I left before they could stop me. When I arrived at the office, a mid-sized logistics company with glass doors and the faint smell of printer ink, my hands trembled. The HR manager greeted me warmly. "You must be Eva," she said, smiling. "We're so glad to have you." Those words hit me harder than she could have known. Glad to have you. No one in my family had ever said that. My cubicle was small but perfect. My own chair, my own desk, my own name on the badge. I felt something unfamiliar, pride that didn't come from anyone else's approval. I took a deep breath and texted Mom. I made it. She didn't reply. An hour later, I was settling in, learning the system, helping a coworker print forms. Everything felt right, too right. Then my phone buzzed. Dad. I froze. His name on the screen made my stomach twist. I hadn't spoken to him since he'd called me a freeloader in heels. My thumb hovered, but curiosity won. I answered softly. "Hello? Where are you?" His tone was flat, sharp, the kind that meant he already knew. "I'm at work, Dad," I said carefully. "At what?" "I got hired at a logistics firm. It's just data entry for now, but it's—" He cut me off. "You think you can go behind my back and play professional? You don't even pay rent in my house." "I was going to tell you once." "Don't bother," he snapped. "I'll come see this little circus myself." Before I could respond, the line went dead. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the phone. I told myself he wouldn't actually come. He'd just yell later. He loved to threaten control more than actually exert it. I was wrong. 20 minutes later, I looked up and saw him through the glass door. My father, in his old brown jacket, shoulders squared like he owned the building. "Eva," one of my coworkers whispered, "do you know that man?" I barely had time to nod before he shoved open the office door and marched past the front desk. "Sir, you can't—" The receptionist started, but he barked. "Move!" He came straight toward me. "So this is what you do now, playing office worker?" "Dad, please!" He grabbed my collar, yanking me to my feet so fast the chair rolled backward. The entire room froze. "Leeches don't earn money!" he shouted. "You think you can fix your useless life with a keyboard?" "Sir, please, this isn't appropriate," said the HR manager, rushing over. He turned to her and sneered. "You're paying her? For what? Pity?" "Dad, stop!" My voice cracked. My chest burned with humiliation. Every face in the office was staring. Every whisper sliced like glass. "You don't belong here," he hissed. "You'll always crawl back to the people who feed you." And then he yanked the badge off my shirt and threw it on the floor. The HR manager stepped between us, trembling but firm. "You need to leave now, sir, or I'll call security." He glared at her, then at me. "Go ahead. Call whoever you want. Everyone will see what kind of parasite you raised." He turned and walked out like he'd won something. I stood there frozen. My blouse was wrinkled, my throat a knot, and my badge lay on the floor, face up. My name staring back at me like proof of a life I'd almost had. Someone touched my shoulder. It was a woman from accounting, maybe mid-30s, kind eyes. She picked up the badge, dusted it off, and handed it back to me. "Don't let him take this from you," she said softly. But he already had. I left quietly, didn't cry, didn't look at anyone. I just walked out and kept walking until I reached the bus stop, where the reflection in the glass showed someone I didn't recognize, pale, trembling, eyes hollow. When I got home, Mom was standing at the stove. She didn't look surprised. "He told me what happened," she said flatly. "You knew he was coming?" I whispered. She sighed. "He just wants what's best for you, Ava. You know how your father is." "Yeah," I said bitterly. "I do." That night, I lay on my bed staring at the ceiling, the badge on my nightstand. I traced my name with my finger until the letters blurred. He thought he'd humiliated me into silence again. But something shifted inside me, a quiet, steady pulse that didn't sound like fear anymore. If he thought I was a leech, then maybe it was time he learned what it felt like when someone took his lifeline away. He'd taken my pride in front of the world. I'd take his power in front of himself. And he'd never see it coming. The next morning, I woke up with the same ache in my chest that humiliation leaves behind. Not pain, but pressure, like something heavy that sits there reminding you you're still beneath it. I didn't cry. I couldn't. The tears had already dried into something sharper. I stayed in my room the whole day, staring at that ID badge on my desk. My name, my position, my proof. My father's handprint was still on the fabric of my collar, and every time I saw it, the sting came back. Not from fear this time, but from fury. By the second day, I went back to the office. I didn't even tell Mom. I didn't care if he found out again. The HR manager looked surprised when she saw me walk in. "Eva," she said softly, "you don't have to—" "I do," I interrupted. "You said I got the job, right?" She nodded. "You did." "Then I'm here to work." And I did. Every single day. I stayed late, learned the systems faster than anyone, helped coworkers fix things even beyond my position. Each email I sent, each document I filed felt like taking back something he'd tried to steal, my worth. At night, when I got home, Dad pretended nothing had happened. He'd sit on the couch watching TV, acting like the world revolved around him. Mom would serve him dinner first, like always. Sometimes he'd look up from the screen just to say, "You didn't last long, huh?" "I still work there," I'd answer quietly. He'd smirk. "Don't get comfortable. Those people will see what you really are soon." I used to shrink when he said things like that, but now I just nodded and let him think he was right, because soon I wouldn't need his approval, or his roof. A month passed, then another. I started saving. Not much, but enough to imagine a life that was mine. He didn't notice. He never noticed anything that didn't serve him. Then one evening, over dinner, he started bragging again about his pension, how he earned everything he had, how the government owed him for his loyalty and years of real work. I'd heard this speech 100 times, but that night, it sounded different. He laughed as he counted the money. "This is what real power looks like, Eva. Not that office nonsense. This right here is respect." Mom nodded like she always did, silent and small. Something in me hardened. He'd spent my entire life defining worth through control, his money, his voice, his dominance, and he called me a leech for trying to stand on my own. That night, I stayed up researching. My job handled logistics and documentation for financial transitions, employee accounts, pensions, benefits. I started noticing patterns, systems, loopholes, rules. And then, buried in one of the record update logs, I saw a familiar name. His. Same address, same date of birth, same smug source of income that funded his cruelty. My heart started racing. I didn't change anything. I couldn't. But I learned everything. How the process worked, how updates were verified, how dependent he was on others to maintain what he thought was permanent. The next morning, I watched him complain about delays in his payment. "Idiots can't do their jobs," he muttered, slamming the remote. "Maybe you should talk to them politely," I said. "Sometimes people stop helping when you treat them badly." He gave me that look, the one that said, "Know your place." "You think the world cares about manners? The world runs on fear." I smiled faintly. Maybe your world does. He didn't understand what I meant. He never did. Over the next few weeks, I started my own small project on the side, helping elderly clients fill out forms, fix pension issues, handle the bureaucracy that frustrated them. It wasn't big, but it grew fast. I worked quietly, carefully, and for the first time in my life, people thanked me. Genuinely. One older client even said, "You've got a gift, dear. You make complicated things feel safe." That line hit me hard. No one had ever used the word safe around me before. Meanwhile, at home, my father's patience started cracking. His pension got delayed again. Minor technical issues, nothing serious, but enough to make him panic. He called the bank, cursed at the staff, yelled at automated systems, then threw the phone across the room. Mom tried calming him. "It's probably temporary," she said. "It's those stupid clerks," he barked. "They're hiring lazy people now. No discipline, no backbone." I kept my head down, hiding the smile that almost escaped, because for the first time, he was the one helpless. He was the one waiting on someone else's decision. He was the one powerless, and I didn't have to lift a finger. At dinner that night, he glared at me. "You look smug." "What's so funny?" "Nothing," I said softly, folding my napkin. "Just thinking how fast respect disappears when people stop fearing you." He frowned. "Watch your tone." I looked him in the eye. "Maybe you should watch your karma." His hand twitched like he wanted to slam the table, but he didn't. For once, he didn't have the power. I stood up, taking my plate to the sink. "You know, Dad," I said, my voice steady, "it's funny. You called me a leech, but now it looks like I'm the only one earning in this house." The silence that followed was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard. He didn't know it yet, but his lessons about fear, control, and money were about to turn against him in ways he couldn't imagine. And I wouldn't have to yell or hit or beg. All I'd have to do was keep letting the truth work quietly in my favor. 2 weeks later, he got a letter in the mail. I was in the kitchen when I heard him rip it open. His voice, usually so loud, so sure, went silent for once. Then came the crash of a chair. "What is this?" he barked. "They're saying my pension is on hold pending verification. Who did this?" I looked up from my laptop. "Maybe it's the system catching up," I said, calmly. "You always say the government's full of idiots." He glared at me. "Don't you dare get smart with me, Eva." I met his eyes steady. "I'm not being smart, Dad. Just factual." He stormed off, yelling into the phone, cursing clerks, demanding managers. But the system had changed. Quietly, automatically, impersonally, nothing illegal, just efficient. The very world he mocked me for working in now controlled him. That night, I came home late. He was sitting on the couch, pale and quiet. Mom was wringing her hands beside him. "They said it could take months to fix," she whispered. "He won't have income till then." I poured myself a glass of water, feeling his stare on my back. "You think this is funny?" he said slowly. "Seeing me like this?" I turned, resting my glass on the table. "No," I said. "I think it's fair." He blinked. "Fair? You dragged me out of my first job like I was filth. You told the world leeches don't earn money. You made sure I'd never forget that shame." I stepped closer. "Now you'll remember this feeling too. Needing something and realizing the only person who understands how to fix it is the one you tried to break." His lips parted, but no sound came out. Mom started to speak, but I stopped her with a look. "I'll help him, eventually. But first, he needs to sit with what he created, just like I did." I walked away before he could answer. A week later, I moved out. Not far, just enough to breathe. My savings covered a small apartment near my office. My company even promoted me to assistant coordinator. Every month, I sent Mom a little money. Not because they deserved it, but because I needed to know I could do good without being like them. Sometimes, when I walked past the pension office, I'd see men like him, red-faced, angry, convinced the world betrayed them. And I'd think, no, you just ran out of people to blame. He'd taught me that fear controls people. But I learned that silence, used right, controls outcomes. And now, every time I cashed my paycheck, I smiled, not because I'd hurt him, but because I'd finally stopped letting him hurt me. That was my real revenge, not taking his pension, but taking back my power. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.